All right, guys, so we're talking today about emerging brands, right? A lot of the brands we work with, they're fairly young. You know, they may have 15, 30, 40 units. And let's talk today a little bit about why that's a win. Like, what's a big deal, right? So fire off, Mike.
Yeah, I think a lot of it is you're in at ground level, right? With any company, we know that. Whether it's a franchise or heck, Microsoft, right? When Microsoft went public, janitors were retiring their next 10 generations, right? Getting in early, there's a lot of ability to get in at a good price before their royalties go up, before their territory sometimes gets smaller. And you get ground level, you get to influence it, and there's so many perks about being in early.
So territories, that's a big one, Anthony, right? Like think about that, because you think about like the Orange Theories of the world, some of these big ones. You know, you get on ground level, it's open market.
In our role, we hear that a lot, right? What's the best territory? What market should we get into? Those kind of things, and that's where the rubber meets the road initially, right? So that's a cool part about it. But then also the opportunity to scale from there, right? So maybe you buy out one market, and then you have the opportunity to go to more. We've talked about our more savvy investors. They really love being able to buy out an entire market. That happens quickly with some of these newer brands, newer emerging brands.
Yeah, one of my favorite part of the process with our clients too, we get to sit down with them with the mapping software and just go through, like they can look at, let's say they're in Dallas, Texas, for instance. They can sit down, look at Dallas, we pull out the reporting, all that good stuff about that territory, and they know, hey, that's a winner. That's another way we reduce risk by allowing them to really identify their territories.
Well, you talk about availability and scalability, right? That's what I talk to all my clients about day one, is the best brand in the worst market. It's the worst brand.
Yeah.
Right? It's got to be a good match. So I always talk about when you're laid in, when you are Chick-fil-A franchisee 7004, right? You're getting a territory that nobody else wanted, honestly. You're the scraps, you're the leftovers. Yep. And if you do really, really well somehow in that area, your next availability of scale, 6 hours away.
That's true. Yep.
Right? And I did that as a franchisee at one point, where always that store that was further away, I had no influence up there. I had no connection with my team. I couldn't make it up there as much. So I couldn't, even if I got that territory, I couldn't do it successfully. I couldn't overlap team, overlap marketing. I might as well be running two different businesses. I was out of my element up there.
Well, think about it this way. A lot of people come in and they're like, hey, this is a new brand, a newer concept, so maybe there's more risk involved. However, on the flip side of that, you get into an emerging brand, it's still a franchise, it's still a proven concept. 100%. Just because it's early on doesn't mean it's not proven, doesn't mean you can't be successful right away. So the people that realize that and get that, that's huge for them, right? So getting in, and to your point, Mike, you said it before, but I'm buying the brand for what it is in 5 years from now versus 2 to 3, even right now, immediately.
Man,
right?
talk about that. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Like that, you're investing early. You have the ability to kind of craft that brand with the franchisor. But the upside, new revenue streams, new national accounts, all the stuff that's going to come down the future is huge. So speak on that a little bit further.
Yeah, I think a lot of that is, some of my big investors that, don't need that ROI day one. And a lot of these brands, you kind of get best of both worlds. You get a good ROI up front, but you see that long-term vision. And, they're going, man, I'm buying it for what it is now, but like you said, what it is in 5 years. Yep. When they have new avenues, when they have new support, when they have new opportunities, right? Like another brand comes out by the same franchisor, boom, you plug in day one. You are already a proven entity to them. They are going to put opportunities in your hands, whether that's purchasing other franchisees, other brands. You have that connection. You are buddy with the franchisor, and you can influence where that brand goes. You can be that relationship piece where when you're 10,000th in, not that, right? We all got kids. We don't have favorite kids, right? That's what we say. But
So we say,
right? It is those ones that they've known the longest. They've been in those trenches with them.
Sure.
You invested in them when they were still a little bit unknown. Man, that comes back in spades every time.
Now the other side of it too is like if you get in early, you got some leverage, but you can get grandfathered in on a few things, So maybe speak on that a little bit.
Yeah, I had a client that was super early into a brand that everybody knows right now. It is huge. Well, the difference between him and these new franchisees is he voted on them when they needed the support, when they needed franchisees, and now they don't. You need them more than, right? That leverage that you talked about went away. So as brands get more proven, they get higher of a commodity, right? They can charge more for royalties, right? He got in the year after that, when they refiled their FTD, which all brands have to do every year, that's their opportunity to move those metrics up, right? He got in a lower royalty that has saved him hundreds of thousands of dollars on the same revenue, right? Doesn't change his revenue on the same business that he owns. 12-month difference in when he signed, that's the only delta. And he saved hundreds of thousands of dollars on royalty fees. It's a huge, huge thing. Royalties never get better as the brand gets older. Territories never get bigger. Those are the two things, just like death and taxes, that you know are gonna happen in franchising.
Yep. Well, the other side of it too, if they're disruptive in nature, potentially, if they're disruptive, they're gonna go in and penetrate a market, and they're gonna own that market for a while until competitors come in. So if you're gonna be a competitor, if you're gonna be like, I missed the boat there with that brand, but I'm gonna jump on with a competitor, that hill is way bigger, right? Because at that point, you gotta now beat that competitor out, the market penetration, they've got 3-4 years on you. That's a big deal too. So
listen, there's still a little bit of risk involved when you get in early. Absolutely. In any business, there's risk. But if you believe in the founder, believe in the brand, and know, you're going to know in your gut if it makes sense or not. So that risk is probably going to pay off in spades, right? High risk, high reward.
Right? And that's why people use people like us. Right?
Exactly.
Is for us to see brand after brand after brand and after brand that we can look at right away. You know, there's a story out there of how fraud detection happens with money, right? How they can figure out counterfeits. It's not that they stare at a bunch of different counterfeits every single day. It's that they stare at the real thing every single day enough that the second they see one that's counterfeit, man, it's a no-brainer for them. They're like, oh, right here. That's what we do with brands. We see all of these brands on a regular basis that we can go, yep, doesn't have the support. Yep, great operator, doesn't know how to be a leader. Boom. Using somebody like us is gonna help de-risk that because we see these day after day after day.
Yeah, that's great. The last thing I'll hit on here is, you know, you gotta kind of choose a stock to an extent, right? Like you get in early, that thing's gonna grow. That acquisition, a lot of the clients we work with, they're looking for, they wanna sell this thing 5, 6, 7 years, maybe even sooner. What's the bigger increase they're gonna see? And that's gonna come from that initial, you know, early stage stock potentially. So that's another thing to consider as well.
I have some guys that buy out huge markets like Dallas, Phoenix, Orlando, knowing that market, just the raw market rights will be worth more when this brand takes off. Even if they haven't developed them, right? They're gonna monetize better if they develop them, obviously. But if they just sat and hold on these primary territories that they're early in on, and resold those, that's a return just like that, right? Not all builders develop that land. They hold that land and they sell it to someone else later. There's a lot of advantages here.
Now, we don't want to come across like emerging brands is the only way, right? Like we deal with a lot of brands that aren't emerging. And it's a risk tolerance thing, and that's part of our job, right? So maybe speak on that a little bit further.
Yeah, I think that's a big thing of understanding from an investment standpoint, from a client standpoint. What does their journey look like? Right? We've all owned businesses, we've all actually owned franchises, and we see these on a regular. The risk isn't as high for us, but that doesn't mean for our clients, right? So we have clients that are different. So that's part of our job, right? That's what I love to do, is really dig in and go, how steady Eddie do you want? Or are you entrepreneur at Spirit and go, hey, I want a little bit of guardrails, let me go build this thing. Or do you want, I want step A through Z5, exactly how to do it. It's up to you, right? It's choose your own journey kind of thing.
Right, at the end of the day, our process is to meet you where you're at and to find the best absolute fit for you, your family, your legacy, whatever the goals are for you, right?
That's fantastic. Well, my preference would be emerging. I like the next big thing, right? I like to find early stage, you know, it's a ground level stock, penny stock, and grow that thing up, but for somebody else, it's not gonna be that way. So it's part of our process.